Let's compare old code and new code. Yay! This is probably going to be very embarrassing for me, but we're going to look at one of my really early C++ games and look at my most recent C++ game, which is from 2016, and then kind of compare the differences and kind of I'll try to talk about what I've learned over the years. So first off, this is Rawr Rinth. I built it while I was going to UMKC, so sometime between 19 and 21 years old. And this is actually a modified version because it runs on Linux. The Windows version, I can't get it to run in Wine. So this is two-player because I was showing off Rawr Rinth at a maker fair, and a lot of kids would come by, and I wanted to let like multiple kids play at once. But we're gonna ignore the secondary Rawr. And I'll just play with this one here who actually controls the camera. So you run around, pick up coins and find your eggs, and you can fight. So I'm going to come over here and fight this. Those numbers generate a lot faster than they're supposed to. Pick up cherries. The second player just clips through things because I really, literally just added a second dinosaur entity with different controls. And didn't really implement anything fancy. So you go around, you can run, collect your eggs, collect that. I think I made also their HP a lot higher in this one, because I didn't want everyone to die immediately, because these snakes are really hard to fight unless you level up. Okay, so you have like a little experience meter. You heal by eating ice cream and cherries and all of that. And, yeah, you get healed, I think, when you level up, but also just in general. As you level up, you get stronger and you get more health. But yeah, that's basically all there is to the game. It never ends. Oh, I think another modification I made to this is that I made all the items respawn because I was showing it at Maker Faire and I didn't want to reset the game every so often. So the original game, you just kind of collect everything and then there'd be nothing else to do. There's not a second player. There wasn't this bounding box. I just did that because literally, for some reason, I couldn't update the sprites. It would crash the game if I used sprites that were too high color, and I tried to change the color palette in GIMP and it wasn't working, so just all this stuff. But yeah, that's my old game Rawr Rinth. That I made it, I had some C++ classes, but for the most part I was very self-taught in my C++ and especially in my game development. But let's go ahead and look at this. 2008, huh? Well, we have different files, so it's not all just thrown in main, right? Right. Okay. We have main. Oh, look at all these functions up here. We have some const global variables. Here we're initializing our Allegro stuff. Here we have variables that I knew should go somewhere else, but I wasn't really sure where to put them. Here's all my assets, just right up there in the top of main. I guess initializing all of my enemies and items, creating the players. This is the modified version. But, as far as the code quality, I didn't really clean anything up. Main game loop, checking for quit, checking for full screen toggle, and then if the game is not paused, then check for escape to go to the pause menu, check for all the movement. So this is if you're doing up or you're using a joystick to go up, and if the right shift is held or this button is held and your stamina is above 0, then you can run. Otherwise you run at your walk speed. I guess restore stamina as you're walking. If there's a collision between the player and the level, or if it's false, then you can move up. Oh, I set it to walk, and then I move up. And then I set is moving to true. I don't know. This is the second player stuff. Did I need that boolean anywhere? I don't know. If you're hitting control, you attack. If you hit space, you attack. And then another full screen toggle? Wasn't that already up here? Whatever. Updating all of the enemies. Iterate through every enemy. Check the distance, if it's within the view distance, which is a global constant. Chase the player every third cycle, I guess. If the enemy's above you, move up. And if there's not a collision, move up. If the player's below you, move down. And then also move left and right. So first you move vertically. Oh, wait. Every third cycle you move vertically, and then the first and second cycle you would move left and right. Update the player with give them their coordinates again, apparently. I don't know why I would do that. Have some text animation where the text effect like just floats up. Check for collisions again, so if an item does not exist. Oh, this is just the respawn. So that was new code, but I basically didn't care about the code, so I didn't try to do anything nice. If the item exists and there's a collision, then set the item's dead timer. I guess I made that just a public variable. Set its exist to false, which I could have put the dead timer thing in there. Add to the score, add to the HP, add to the monies, play a sound. If it's a cherry or ice cream, you collected fruit. If it's an egg, you collected eggs. I have like a different variable, fruit collected, versus a function for add eggs. Then set up the fancy text. And if it's a cherry, we're going to display it in this color, like a greenish color. Money is a yellowish color, egg is white. Okay. Now, update every enemy. Check the player stats, set to game over. I added this dead timer for the Maker Faire version. Sound timer, I don't know what that is. Game timer, just to regulate animations, I guess. Key timer, counter. Update offset, so that just scrolls the screen along with you based on the offset and the player coordinates. I guess it sets offset X and Y, and you give it the player so it can get the coordinates. Just give it the whole player. We're in the game, gonna begin drawing. Okay, we draw the bottom layer, and then we iterate through the items again. If it's a cherry type, then we're going to draw a cherry. Okay, so then we just have an if statement for if it's what type, draw that type. Very pretty. No, it's not. Draw a circle. I don't know what that's for. Draw a rectangle. Oh, the mouse has a circle for the second player. Draw the players, draw the enemies, draw the HUD. Oh, this is shadow for the text, I guess. The player's HP bar. Yeah, the HP bar is above the players. For both players. Writing out their level on the bottom. My credits. Drawing text effects, I guess. I don't know. Draw a Minimap. That I was actually very proud of my Minimap when I made this game. This is probably not going to run. I don't think I have Allegro installed. Maybe I do. I mean, I've been using this computer for ages. Let me move that back over here. Oh, yeah. So this mini map down here I was super proud of. I just basically took the tile map and I drew pixels instead of tiles in the corner. Oh, see that? Item timeout's going. Okay, so this does run. That's cool. In the menu, draw some stuff. If it's game over, draw some stuff. Okay, once the game is over, destroy all our stuff. Here's our update offset. So a lot of the time I couldn't decide between pointers and references because I didn't really understand the difference back then. Collision. So for the collision, I would subtract the player's speed and then check collision. Oh my god, what the fuck? What is going on here? I don't even know. I don't want to read that. stuff happened, not very effectively. Collision for the enemy, same thing. Couldn't just make like a base class for the enemy and player and have them inherit, which maybe I did with this basic object. But yeah, I could have done this better. But since I was self-taught, I didn't really know a lot of what I was doing. Is collision? I could have just written return there instead of if, but whatever. Get the distance, draw menu text is all thrown in a function, which I'm actually still very guilty of doing. I tend to just like put a function at the bottom of the code and here's all my menu setup. Sometimes it's better. I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so that was the main file. We also had basic object is enemy. Enemy's not even inheriting from basic object. Character is inheriting from basic object. And it has a lot of functions. Action is. Monies, get monies. For some reason these are inlined, but the rest, some of these are inlined on the same line, and then some of them aren't. If they're, I remember someone else looked at my code, and I was really like sad that they said my code was messy. But I agree, and also that kind of had me kind of consolidate my style a little bit more. Okay, man, what the heck? Okay, that's the setup. Here's drawing. Update. Countdown on their dead timer. If they don't exist, then return. Get their region. Update their collision region, I assume. Attack counter. There's like a cooldown timer on your attacking. Begin attacking. Moving. Increment your frame. Move. This looks more complicated than it needs to be. The level file I made with my old map editor. That's not the right folder. I threw it in content. So back then my level editor, Musugo, if you remember that, if you've been watching me for like over 10 years, it was a really cool map editor, and at the first, this is the only way I knew to make maps, was just put them all in a number array. So these are just different layers. This is like the bottom layer, then the middle layer. You can kind of see the outline of a house here. You can kind of see the outline of a house here, like if you look really hard. And then some top layers that go above the player. So that's the map format I used to have. I do things differently now, but I think even Tiled does stuff like this. That's why I always write like a map converter, because I don't really like this format. I like storing more information about my maps. But yeah. So we load in the map. We basically don't do anything with that header information. We load in each tile information at a time, and then we throw it in a array or something, maybe? I don't know if I was using vectors at this point. We have just a 3D array, so I'd probably just go with like a vector at this point or something. But yeah, so that's a lot of my old code. It's kind of painful to look at. We are not saving that workspace. We don't care. I also originally had all of the assets in the base folder, and it was a mess. I now clean up my code a lot better than that. But, I don't know. Let's look at a newer thing. Maybe I'll just throw this over here for reference, so you can kind of compare. So, Fin and Kit I worked on last year, or not last year, 2016, it's been a while. And one of the big differences is that whenever I work on a game now, I have some sort of framework of the boilerplate code that I keeps in a separate repository, and then I have my game code, which goes in another repository. So Kuko is my kind of multi-purpose framework for C++ games. It uses SDL and Lua. So, well, let me just open the Linux project. Notice that only I have main and the Fin and Kip app here. There's some garbage over here. I have a config file. That's just its own file. I'll step through these folders just to kind of like break it down. But now everything's in subfolders. I like to keep my code where I have like, here's just, that's content, that's images and fonts. Here's my entities. Here's my game states. Here's some utilities, probably like a string util or I don't know, something to send messages between states. This is my level format for this game since it was not like a tile-based game. And so on. Let's run this really quick. I'll show you what it's like. So, this game, I don't have the story mode levels working. Like I might have thrown some stuff in there to test. Yeah, so there's some balloons. You can jump as the cat. You can double jump if you basically land on the dolphin again. And the dolphin can only jump once the cat's in the air. The main thing I spent all of my time working on for this game was the level editor. Let's clear that. So this UI stuff, I spent so much time on this. Just kind of getting it working and looking good and being, you know, somewhat nice to play with. Over here's behaviors. You can set balloons to go in a circle, or they can just rotate in place in a circle. I can select, select this guy. I'm gonna make him go, it's random, but that's not advised. I can also blow them up, make them small. I'm gonna get rid of that one since he's gonna get in the way. You can also set your backgrounds. That doesn't work. I don't want to break anything right now. You can set different songs and scroll speeds, and then you can test it out. Oop, those balloons came in out of nowhere. That was weird. Okay, and then there's my spinning animals, birds. So also let's just play around with some other ones. Let's do squiggly up. That's probably for like the balloons. You put squiggly up, going upwards. Let's put a sky turtle with a crab, an angry crab on top. We'll make it go wobbly to the side. Get rid of these balloons. Here's a bucket of chicken. We'll just make that go kind of up and down in the water. Test it out. So this game is not done. I basically spent all the time on the map editor and got busy with work and then never ended up building levels for it. So that's something I should revisit, considering I have all this stuff in here. Oh, and you can add extra health, ending marker, extra health, stuff like that, scroll back and forth. I'm like super proud of this. Excuse me. And I also tried to make it so it would work okay on a tablet. So I tried to make the buttons relatively big, but you can still use the keyboard for different things. Like, if you were playing the game on a tablet, you would just tap it. I basically have a prototype of this game on Android already. It's like 5 levels, and I wrote it with Lua instead of with C++. Okay, but yeah, so that's this game. Let's look at, again, let's view the levels here. Let's look at the code. Okay, so Kuko means cake in Esperanto. That's the engine stuff. Let's just kind of browse this real quick. We have our application state. This is using SDL, yeah. So this just has a timer struct, an application. This is already like kind of the white space is put to better use. I'm more clean about that. It has kind of the basics you need. The start function just, initializes SDL. I have a nice logger that displays the status as you run the game. You can look at that. That's just HTML file. So over here, this is what the logger looks like. I can highlight stuff if I need to debug something specific. just setting up SDL. That's just kind of a lot of different setup stuff. For the most part, I try to keep my functions pretty small. Let's see, let's look at what we got for entities. We have the base entity, so it can be set up, it can animate, it has an update and draw, it has a position and a frame, like an animated frame, collision region, because I was using bounding boxes for this specific one, and I just kind of wanted something quick and reusable, which I might make a different version where I have like collision as like a separate entity. That one wasn't done. I have a basic map structure. I have a lot of managers. Oh, and I have a lot of stuff with Lua as well. So here's my Lua config. I don't really remember how a lot of this works, but it goes into the Lua files. Man, let's see. That's not the Lua stuff. We'll try to find something. The config manager just reads that config file, which I think is a Lua file. Yeah. Font manager stores fonts. Image manager stores images, and it's kind of like just a key value dictionary sort of thing. Storing it as a map behind the scenes. Input manager. I basically have a enum full of different types of commands as basic stuff, and then it checks if it's being pressed down or pressed up, and I have some sort of like keyboard typing detection. Language manager for if you have different languages in your game. Lua manager, so these I think actually interface with Lua. So get text from our language files, it calls that function. So in here I have languages, and then I have everything in Lua files. So any common text is here. English would be here, and that's just all of the text for the game. I have a special format for the game levels. Oh yeah, menus, instead of just loading them all like at the bottom of the file, I just have a Lua format kind of that I made. So here's all the assets it needs to load, so I don't just have a big list of assets to load at the top of a code file. Well, I guess in this code file, but not in the C++. The nice thing with Lua is you can set variables, and then I just have basically all of my entities declared here. So I have, here's the, this is an image or a button, it has an ID, it can be referenced by, it has a texture, which is referenced up here, positioning, and then stuff like that. So I didn't write like a proper, I don't know, UI thing. I just made something where I kind of have to hard code a bunch of stuff, but yeah. World files, those are pretty simple. So it has a lot of information. It has the speed, the song it's playing, the ground and background images, which assets need to be loaded. So this one just has balloons, and then the types: tile begin and end. Tile number 0, we have a balloon at this position, its behavior is this, and its scale is that. So that's pretty simple. Map manager just stores maps. Menu manager stores the menus and checks for input. I could also hard code some adding buttons and adding labels instead of doing it through the Lua scripts. It checks the mouse stuff. I made each menu be able to have different pages. So for instance, oh yeah, here we have different pages. Like if you were on the main page and were viewing the objects you can add, or the object properties like their behaviors, or the level properties like the sound, or the file properties where you can save the file. Those were different pages in one menu. Here's a state interface. Each state will have setup, cleanup, update, and draw. What the next state is and whether the state is done. And then the game itself inherits from that. We have a basic logger that logs to that HTML file. Here's a basic platform thing that tries to figure out what platform you're on. String utilities to convert between ints and strings. Basic, I guess here's my widget interface. So is it visible on every page or not? what's its position, what's its ID, and then each of these inherit from that. So like I have a text box, a label, an image, and button. That's usually the basic UI widgets I need for a game. Okay, so that's my Kuko framework. That's that engine. So here in the States, I kind of have different updates, it looks like, for the different pages. You know, maybe not as clean as it could be, but I still try to keep it a lot nicer looking. Yeah, I have a stack for keeping track of what state you're on, so you just pop off the stack to get to your previous state, because you can get to like the help menu, for example, from different places. Update, let's see, check all the button clicks. So that's not very clean, but it's okay. It's just checking to see if, you know, the thing being clicked is this or that, and update accordingly. Yeah. Let's look at the level editor state. This is probably the most complex part. And we can look at the juggle game state, which is the actual game part. So this handles like brush updates. Okay, what did you click? You clicked on a thing. Which button did you click? Check with the menu manager. Did you update the brush? If it's an obstacle, then you update the brush type here and here and here. Otherwise, you're not updating the brush. Get the friendly name. This is for the little hint tab on the side of the editor. Update the brush, and then if you're like placing the tiles, it'll check your X and Y position, where you're tapping or clicking. It'll check are you, I think, clicking between the toolbar? Like if you're clicking the toolbar, don't place a tile. Otherwise, erase a tile. If this is a right click, then you erase the tile. If it's left click, then you place the tile. Handle file buttons and all of that. The game state itself, I guess I just kind of like loaded in the textures I needed for the game. State, the playing state. Load the map, set the level path, I guess. Okay, and set up some buttons, so I didn't have like a Lua file already set up for those. Set texture, set up level, set up characters. That just places them where they go. Cleanup functions always clear out the textures that are currently loaded. Pause, just kind of pauses it and displays some text. Success menu. Failure menu if you die. Update menu. Update playing. So then here it tries to find if you're clicking on anything, or if you're tapping on the jumping keys, and gets the X and Y coordinates, and I guess has to adjust for your screen resolution, and then Fin can jump or Kit can jump, and then it'll write out some debug stuff if you hit 1. Check for collision. If not colliding, then the cat will fall further down, or the dolphin will fall, or whatever. So yeah, scrolling the level and rotating the characters and just all that. So this took me probably, I don't know, I was probably working on it at least 6 months in 2016, and then things just got chaotic once I started teaching more classes. We can look at these jumping objects real quick. These are Fin and Kit and how they jump. So it's at least a little bit cleaner. I think it's a lot more easy to follow and a lot easier to maintain. Clearly, when I was first writing games in C++ and Allegro4, I didn't really understand C++ very well, and so that led to some really bad code. That's not the folder I wanted. That's not the folder I wanted. So I have a lot of these. I just put these in my code atrocities repository. So I have my old pick and sticks, quick attack, Daphne in Space, things like that. I have some other old C++. These are programming assignments from school. Here's some OpenGL stuff, SDL stuff. This was a school assignment. This is a shmup I was working on a long time ago. This was an online RPG I was trying to make before I decided to make Rawr Rinth instead. I think I had the server and client running, and you could kind of like move characters around, but that's all I got done. Here's my old assembly code from that class, except I only saved 2 files. Here's my old Visual Basic code. So I did Visual Basic 6 and 5 before I did C++. Okay, so hopefully that was an interesting romp through old code. Some of it's old, some of it's newer, but they're both actually kind of old. These days, I haven't been writing in C++ as much, because I've been publishing a lot of mobile apps, and I don't have this all set up to work with mobile, and making stuff for mobile is such a huge pain in the butt. I hate it so much, and I don't know, I kind of just want to revisit just focusing on PC game development, but sometimes it feels like you're not gonna get any views if you make just PC games. Everyone plays mobile games. I don't know, but mobile is such a pain in the butt. But I definitely need to revisit this sometime this year and maybe make the levels and put out like, here's a demo of this on PC. I actually did a thing. Yay! But yeah, it's kind of on my to-do list. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.